Pro Group Management. Workers' comp that works for you.
Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers. On the broadcast today, Mark Moses joins us. He's an author and former municipal finance director in Northern California. He has a lot to say about municipal government. Here for the whole show on all new Nevada Newsmakers. Big R in Sparks is located on Bering Boulevard next to Smith's and across from Reed High School. It's a 50,000 square foot clothing store and a whole lot more. For the cold days ahead, jackets, hoodies, flannel shirts, insulated bib overalls, thermal underwear, beanies, and merino wool socks. Big R. Hardware, clothing, and a whole lot more. As you know, Reno is booming. Toll's development company is helping it grow with insightful design and development, building community with every project, adding beauty, adding excitement, emphasizing our shared humanity. Reno is becoming bigger. Toll's development is helping it become better, more livable, more enjoyable. To learn more, go to tollsdevelopment.com. tollsdevelopment.com.
Save money and take transit. Did you know you can ride the bus all day for less than what it would cost you for a gallon of gas? Plan your trip now by going to rtcwashoe.com.
For 50 years, Nevada Heating has been keeping people comfortable in their homes. At Nevada Heating, call the Do It Right guys and get the heat back on today. Call us today and we'll fix it today. That's the Nevada Heating way. Why freeze for days on end when Nevada Heating can get your furnace fixed today? Call us today and we'll fix it today at 323-5585 or schedule us on our website at nevadaheating.com.
This is Nevada Newsmakers with host Sam Shad, a no-holds-barred political forum. Now, from the Nevada Newsmakers broadcast headquarters, here is Sam Shad.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we are pleased to welcome to the program for the first time Mark Moses. He is a former municipal finance director. He's consulted local governments in the area of finance and administration since 2011. Prior, he spent 2 decades working directly for municipalities in senior management positions. His perspective on local government has been informed and influenced by his earlier career in small business consulting and banking and his interest in applied economics and philosophy. How does philosophy play into local government?
Yeah, well, I think in some sense not enough. In some sense, that's what drives everything. Cities do not think about who they are, what they are, why they exist. In 30 years, I never had a discussion, even though I was oriented towards those types of discussions, never had a discussion inside City Hall about what is a city, why does it exist. And yet cities adopt missions, goals, they pursue them, they adopt budgets, and it really has no real rudder, no real sense of direction. And so I think that's really at the root of a lot of city administrative and financial problems, and we can get into it, why that really leads to perpetual scarcity. I mean, you never hear a city say, oh, we have enough money to do what we want to do. And I think that's an unhealthy environment. And working from the inside and seeing the impact on the operations of a city and on the morale of cities when they're constantly in that survival mode is what really motivated me to get out and talk about it, because I think we have to have more philosophic discussions about what a city is, why it is, and then that should inform the goals that are adopted.
Okay, well, if you go back to, say, Roman times, because the Romans were a pretty organized group in terms of their conquering and building cities and conquering a good chunk of the world, did they have a plan? Did they know what they were doing?
I think they were more focused. I mean, if you look at a city mission, it's usually something very, very broad or nebulous enough that it can be interpreted to mean anything, and that's kind of one of the inside games. If a city adopts its priorities, department heads will scramble to figure out how what they want to do fits in with a priority, and that will basically ensure that they get the budgets they want to do what they want to do. So, and you've got that going on all over the city. So there's no real delimitation, there's no real scope. And part of the thesis of my book is that it's impossible to manage or budget for an amorphous organization. And that's really what our cities have become. They really decide who they are and what they are from council meeting to council meeting. And you can't run an organization successfully that way. And so the solutions that cities come up with to deal with their financial issues, often it's just ignore them and let them kind of percolate in the background, again, without really thinking about the consequence of that to the service delivery and the quality of services delivered. Or they'll wind up working on efficiencies and tweaking, but they don't know that if they're tweaking the right things. Are they improving things that really even need to be done? And I really lived that, because I ran finance departments, and I would do what I could to improve efficiencies. But in the back of my mind, I was thinking, wait a minute, I'm making something more efficient that we likely shouldn't even be involved in.
All right. When you look at the system of government, say, for example, in Nevada, because you did a lot of your work in Northern California, correct?
Yes.
When you look at government in Nevada, you have city councils and county commissions, but then you also have county managers and city managers, and those are the people that really run the organization. Is there an issue for you with that? Should the city councils and the county commissions actually be the people really doing the work?
No, I don't think so.
Well, why? Let's start there.
Yeah, and I think this is the big part of the dysfunction is you've got a lot of councils and commissions that don't understand the role of an oversight board, of a governing body, and they tend to micromanage, they tend to get involved in detail in a way that, again, adds to the dysfunction of these organizations. I mean, if cities and counties are sufficiently complex that they need professional management, and they need managers that the governing body can trust to carry on the administration. If you're going to get involved as a commissioner or county supervisor or city council in hiring decisions on department heads or overly involved in procurement decisions, you basically politicize all of that, and that really makes it difficult for the professionals in the organization, the finance directors, the purchasing managers, to do their jobs effectively.
All right, so is this one of the reasons why the top people in the management of government, the city managers, the county managers, make such high salaries, is because they know that they have a short lifespan because they're not always going to align with what the politicians want them to align with?
Yeah, I think that contributes to it somewhat. I think part of the reason they command the salaries they do or the compensation they do is the supply and demand issue.
And their qualifications. And I don't mean to be putting anybody down for that, because I know a lot of terrific county managers and city managers.
But I think we've added to that problem by creating more cities and agencies and government entities that need managers. In other words, part of the reason why it's so hard to find a good manager, well, I think there's some things that city councils and county commissioners do to make it unattractive for people to apply who are qualified to their cities. But a lot of it is they've made so many organizations that need so many managers that you create a supply problem just through the proliferation of all these agencies.
All right, and that applies in a lot of ways to broadcast industry, for example. We have a certain amount of people who cover the news. Now we have news programs that run from early in the morning till late at night. There is no way that same small team can continue to cover all those things. And so you've seen a dumbing down of that product because of it. So it's not just in government that's an issue, it's all the way around. One of the things that, obviously politicians want to do when they run for office is come up with plans for the future. They're not just coming in, for the most part, to deal with the problems of old alone, but also to give a direction, a new direction for a city or a county. And so that's where I think a lot of the issues with the amount of money that they're chasing after comes from. And the public is very happy to accept things. They rarely want to give up anything, but at the same time, then they see what their taxes are and suddenly balk, especially in places like California.
Right, and I get it. From the taxpayer point of view, you want to kind of get your, quote, money's worth, and so everyone seems open to, receiving something new. But this is part of the dynamic where if every 4 years you have somebody coming on with a new program, it just gets layered on. The old programs don't go away. The old responsibilities don't go away. I think that's why, when I was a finance director, I really fought hard for public works because they were very neglected in terms of the money they needed to, whether it's for fixing streets or sidewalks. All that got set aside because they couldn't compete with the public safety departments, and it just wasn't sexy. And so I think the deferred maintenance that you see is heavily contributed by that kind of mentality of you don't really value so much the mundane, the maintenance, the day-to-day or week-to-week until you have a big sinkhole or something, and then it's an emergency. So you wind up dealing in that kind of emergency mode.
For Reno and Sparks and Washoe County, and then also for Clark County, the RTCs got measures passed to be able to increase their budgets and the taxation on the public through gas taxes to be able to maintain roads pegged to inflation. I think that was a very smart move. It does force some people to drive out of the county and go somewhere else to buy their gas. But we have great roads, for example, in northern Nevada, and the orange cones are ever present in southern Nevada. So in a way, that part has worked out well. But if everything was indexed to inflation, then the taxes would be insane.
Yeah, and part of what I get into my book is how
please tell people the name of your book. I'm sorry, and we'll show it.
Yeah, I'll just give the title is The Municipal Financial Crisis. And I really do think we're experiencing a crisis. And part of what I try to do in the book is demystify local government budgeting, city budgeting, because it's a big mystery to people, and nobody likes it. No one wants to talk about it. The department heads go crazy during budget season because they're just a lot. Some of them they just became administrators because they kept moving up the ladder because they were good in their profession, and now they're responsible for representing budgets. And I just saw over my 3 decades in local government a lot of confusion on the part of new council members, even department heads after years never really understood what was going on with the budget process. So and part of, I think what I try to...
By the way, when you're talking about the amount of money that goes toward government, and you're saying that these people really don't know and understand it, that's an incredibly scary proposition.
Yeah, and it's because you're lucky if a couple people in the organization really understand what's going on, because it winds up being so piecemeal. I mean, look at it, first of all, from the council member point of view. You can't take it all in one session, so you'll have multiple study sessions. But by the time you get to the 3rd study session, you can't keep it all in your head from week to week. And so, you've got maybe a few technical people that, maybe without the policy not really informed necessarily on policy, who really have their heads around all the assumptions that went in and all the dynamics of where the city really is financially. And so I think there's a lot of talk about transparency, and I say, well, you have to be transparent inside the organization before you can be transparent outside. And a lot of this has to do with the antiquated systems that are used for budgeting, because everything's so piecemeal and fragmented that to get an overall, a holistic view of the state of the city's finances, you don't even have internal reporting that helps you with that. So it's often on some side spreadsheet of one of your internal kind of budget geeks where everything's, really comes together.
All right, let's take a break.
Yeah.
We'll come back and talk about zero-based budgeting and whether that's a good idea or not. We're talking with Mark Moses. His book is The Municipal Financial Crisis, a Framework for Understanding and Fixing Government Budgeting. And we'll be right back.
Remember 2010 in northern Nevada, 13 to 14% unemployment, thousands of homes in foreclosure, Nevada's casinos closing? Families in the Reno-Sparks area were hurting. Many were losing everything. Then Story County launched a game changer for our region, a public-private industrial partnership, streamlined permitting, slashed bureaucracy, attracting Fortune 500 companies that made Nevada their home. Story County generated a river of cash to area communities. Economic studies by the state and others for the Gigafactory consistently show positive economic benefits for our region. $4 billion in local wages, $17 billion in consumer spending and economic activity, over $100 million in taxes to Washoe, Story, Reno, Sparks, and Nevada, just for the Gigafactory alone. Story County, improving northern Nevada one industry at a time.
'Tis the season for the Holiday Cash Express at Tamarack Casino. We're trimming the tree with weekly cash giveaways, including a $5,000 winner every Saturday, plus $70,000 in grand prize stocking stuffers, including two $15,000 Holiday Cash winners guaranteed. It's a good time to win at Tamarack Casino.
What do you count on? You count on your power every day. At NV Energy, we've always powered what's important to you, but we're not looking at the past. We're focused on the future. While our standards are high, our rates will remain low. And our commitment to renewables isn't just meeting standards, but leading the way. Because you can count on more than just your power. You can count on the company who brings it to you. That's our promise. You can count on it.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we continue our conversation with Mark Moses. He is the author of The Municipal Financial Crisis, a Framework for Understanding and Fixing Government Budgeting. So the way that it works right now, my understanding is, for the most part, is you take last year's budget and then you put in the inflationary, desires for the coming year, and that's the way you budget. And if you don't spend all your money in the previous year, which everybody tries to do, then you would lose money, going forward. When in fact, to me, the smartest thing would be to have a zero-based budgeting, so you're actually budgeting for what you need, not a big race to spend all the money. Your thoughts?
My thoughts is that idea sounds nice, and it's great if you could execute anything like that. But realistically, the way local government works and the time frame for developing a city budget, the budget starts when somebody in the finance office sits down and starts to basically do an accounting. And for reasons I'll get into, they're not really doing financial planning. The budget is, I think, purported to be a financial plan, but it really isn't so much planning when you get down to it. It's more like an accounting of all the obligations that are in place and saying it adds up to X. And so the idea of zero-based budgeting, I mean, this goes back to what the Carter era, I think he popularized it a bit, is that, you're going to rigorously go in and justify every expenditure, and you're going to be ruthless and really treat everything starting at zero. Well, it doesn't work that way. You've got labor agreements that already tell you how much you're going to pay people. In the case of public safety, there's some staffing minimums. There's so many intricate parts of these MOUs that deal with the way business is conducted and the way you operate your workforce, whether it's work hours or schedules and everything. So now, and this is like 80% of your operating budget is personnel. So and it's too late to change your service delivery system and really revamp things and retool. So by the time that person sits down to prepare the first draft of the budget, you've got 80% already in place, right? So now you're dealing with the remaining 20. Well, that includes contractual obligations, pet projects, things that the budget office can't just say, oh, we're going to start at zero and question this. It just got approved last year, by majority council vote or something. And there'll be some little things maybe with smaller constituencies, but it's like, well, does the budget office really want to get all messy and start putting things on the table, like that? And so before you know it, you're lucky if you haven't spent 99% of your available funding. By the time the budget office is done just accounting for all of the commitments that are in place and all the expectations that are in place. To make those kind of changes, to really treat it as zero-based, you'd have to start a year or two ahead, because that's when you'd have to deal with negotiating with the unions or changing your technology or implementing, phasing things out. You can't just drop things. That's why cities have such a struggle, right? They can't put on a timeline, hey, we're going to get out of this business by 2027. And so they never drop anything. And so that's why you get the accumulation of activities.
All right, let's take another break. More with Mark Moses, and hopefully happier answers here when we come back.
Like a traditional handmade basket, retail is woven into the fabric of life in Nevada. From big box to mom and pop, retail supports our communities in countless ways. Jobs for the disabled, team uniforms for kids, help for the elderly, and so much more. Retail employs over 1 in 10 workers. Retail supports Nevada, and we support retail.
RANNV.org.
Pro Group Management is the place where companies can find workers' comp solutions that are designed to meet their specific business requirements. As regulations evolve, Pro Group takes a proactive approach to clear the path to make sure your business stays ahead of the curve. Knowing your workers' comp program is optimized, you can focus on other important matters related to your growing business. Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
Early in the morning or throughout the night, professional truck drivers are on the job, serving you, safely moving freight that's crucial to our economy. From the oldest industries to our newest innovators, from the exotic to the everyday, trucks are everywhere, moving everything. Never afraid to embrace a future that makes Nevada and our nation stronger. Trucking moves America forward.
What do you count on? You count on your power every day. At NV Energy, we've always powered what's important to you, but we're not looking at the past. We're focused on the future. While our standards are high, our rates will remain low, and our commitment to renewables isn't just meeting standards, but leading the way, because you can count on more than just your power. You can count on the company who brings it to you. That's our promise. You can count on it.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we continue our conversation with Mark Moses. He's a former municipal finance director in Northern California, and he's written a book called The Municipal Financial Crisis. How big of a piece do pensions come in and the way that they are funded at this point in time? Because it seems that, we're coming from a different world. Back in the day, the auto companies, for example, made these insane deals with the workers, knowing full well that they would be out of their offices and retired long before the crisis hit. Are we in the same boat with public pensions?
Yeah, and it's worse in a lot of ways because we didn't learn from what happened with the auto companies in the 90s and continued with the defined benefit plans. And so that is a huge issue because it basically forces the next generation to pay for the services delivered into this generation. And so it's a huge pushing out of obligations. And I think right behind that is the retiree medical, called the OPEB benefits, where a lot of cities, the pensions may be underfunded. Maybe they're funded at 70% and they're struggling to keep above that. But in a lot of cases, the retiree medical isn't funded at all. And so that's just another ticking time bomb. But I look at that in the context of just kind of another thing that gets pushed out, just like the maintenance of city infrastructure. Again, if you're able to offshoot that to a dedicated agency, you can get better results. But when cities, to the extent that cities take over all these utilities and all these activities, they just mount more and more debt. And I will point out one other thing related to pensions. Part of what I've been studying is what types of things, by trying to run it through a government bureaucracy, are you just making impossible to really execute? And I think a lot of these charitable type activities, even recreational type activities, you've got subsidies to recreation departments, I think from a distance it's like, oh, well, that's just to keep recreation affordable for the community. Well, in a way that's true, but the reason it's not affordable is because you're paying the government pension rates to people in your recreation department, building up liabilities for every aspect of the city. So it's just kind of another example of how, by not really delimiting the scope of what you're doing, you create burden, again, not just for the current generation, but for future generations.
The book is The Municipal Financial Crisis, A Framework for Understanding and Fixing Government Budgeting. The author is Mark Moses. It's a pleasure to have you here, sir. It's kind of a scary story here, but we appreciate you coming. Please come back.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back.
The Nevada Builders Alliance has been protecting the interests of the construction industry for over 50 years. Our programs save members thousands of dollars every year and allow them to provide much-needed benefits to their employees. Our industry also allows Nevada to grow. If you're thinking about a career in the construction industry, reach out. And if you haven't thought of a career in construction, what are you waiting for? We are the Nevada Builders Alliance.
7 at 7 is a newscast built for your smartphone. It's a 7-minute newscast available every weekday at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. at lvrj.com. We don't waste your time, and we give you the day's top stories.
We at the RJ have noticed some similarities between us and a certain BTS character, RJ.
Plus the latest in Las Vegas business, weather, health, and entertainment news. 7 at 7 streaming now on your smartphone.
Modern boutique Ahern Hotel and Event Center sits at the heart of the Las Vegas Strip. 2 floors of meeting and event space are ideal for groups and conventions. Stay in one of 200 luxurious rooms and suites. Brand your event throughout the property. Flexible event spaces make for easy planning and personalization. Take over the entire hotel with a full buyout option.
$200,000 Cars and Cash giveaways at Carson Valley Inn. Cash and prize drawings Thursdays and Saturdays. Plus, win a 2023 Ford F-150 or we'll pay you cash instead. Don't miss your chance to play and win. Cars and Cash at the Carson Valley Inn.
Thanks for watching Nevada Newsmakers. You can catch us online 24 hours a day at nevadanewsmakers.com, or you can download the podcast wherever you like to get your podcast. We'll see you on the next broadcast.